And at 10, MARROW. Strength isn't just measured in how much they can lift or how far they can throw something. It can also be measured in how much pain someone can take, mentally or physically. So what about a mutant that is literally constantly putting one of her most sensitive parts in constant danger of being broken? If you don't know, MARROW's mutant ability is that her bones grow so fast that they poke through her skin, forming some form of dense armor that she can break off to form an instant weapon for close combat. However, the amount of pain this would cause is truly excruciating. Bones are one of the most sensitive parts of our anatomy, and even just exposing them to the air would be extremely painful. Add on to that the fact that she is constantly breaking them to use them as weapons, and you have one hell of a day. The fact that she can do this and still keep fighting is incredible, and something to really take into account when considering strength. And at 9, Forget-Me-Not. Ever wish your ex would stop texting you? Cause like, guess who woke up with 26 missed calls from their ex? My ex. So obviously I wish I could be forgotten, to discourage me from talking to them. Well, Forget-Me-Not's power is actually why you don't know who he is. He can't be remembered, recorded, photographed, or anything. If you aren't looking at him in that moment, you've completely forgotten that he exists. His power is so potent, I guess is the word, that even Professor X had to set an alarm for every hour on the hour to remind him that Forget-Me-Not exists. This power, while making life terribly lonely, unless you want to live like a 51st States kind of life, would be extremely useful for fighting crime, making power plays in the world government, and even making a lot of crime easy as hell. Imagine if you could just walk into a bank, get the teller to let you into the safe, and then everyone forgets once you're in there. Goals! I mean, what? Stacy, come back, please. Maybe I do have this power. And at 8, XORN. Do you forget things really easily? Do things go in one ear and come out the other? Or do you have a perfect memory? You hear something and it gets sucked into your brain and stays there. Both of these things can be called black hole brain, since black holes suck everything in, but they also could be considered the ultimate form of nothing. Well, XORN is in kind of the same boat. However, he has a literal black hole / miniature star for a brain, which, while sounding dope since it gives him powers like electromagnetism, healing, and flight, it could mean the very end of the world if one little thing goes wrong. If this guy wanted to be a supervillain, all you would need to do is get a CAT scan. The moment anyone sees what he's got going on in there, they'll want to crack him open like a can of soup and see how he's able to function. But the moment they do, those surgeons will have unleashed a force on this world so great that they probably won't be able to stop it. And while that sounds like a downside, it definitely is. But this list is about stronger than you think, and it certainly makes this character a freaking totem of destruction.
And at 7, Jack-O-Lantern. The first Jack-O-Lantern is Daniel Cormac of Ireland, who was born to a poor farmer who was granted a magical lantern by an Irish fairy. Yep, that's how we're going with this. Cormac is a member of the Global Guardians, an international group of superheroes. His first recorded mission in Super Friends number 8 was to help Green Lantern dismantle a bomb in Ireland. Both Daniel Cormac and Marvin Noronza, the second Jack-O-Lantern, have a mystical lantern that gives them the power of flight, flame projection, teleportation, illusion casting, enhanced strength, and the ability to just create fogs. The power of the lantern is also its weakest at noon and gradually increases until its peak at midnight. Liam McHugh, the third Jack-O-Lantern, found a way to internalize the powers of the mystical lantern and no longer needs to carry it. So, yeah.
And at 6, Tag. Tag, while mostly unknown, is one powerhouse if you really consider the implications of his powers. He obviously gets this name from the game we all played as kids, and with his power set it's clear why. Called the Pariah Effect, the writers considered him useless enough to depower him during M-Day, and most of you may not have even noticed, but Tag's powers involve him being able to, in essence, give someone the cheese touch, or make them the most desired person in the world with one touch. The Pariah Effect causes people or objects touched by Tag to either be avoided by everyone, or have everyone congregate around that target. He controls mob mentality itself. He could make anyone who bullied him undesirable number 1 with a single punch, or give himself some damn peace and quiet by touching something that he always has on him, like a phone or a wallet. Or, let me just put this out there. Hello, Mr. President. How's the re-election campaign going? This man could control world governments with a handshake, and yet somehow the writers thought he was useless enough to remove his powers? Or maybe they thought he was too overpowered. I mean, this is kind of OP. He's hella strong if you really think about it. It's not about the powers you have, it's how you use them. Like dick size.
Coming in at number 5, we have Ghost Rider. As a flaming skull-headed hero with demonic superpowers, Ghost Rider is one of the more noteworthy mystical heroes in the Marvel Universe, using Hell's own powers to fight against evil and protect his world from whatever threatens it. But Ghost Rider's most underrated ability might just be his penance stare, which causes whoever it's being used upon to relive all of the pain and trauma they've caused throughout their life and filling them with remorse. Some villains are merely stunned by the penance stare, while some have been so remorseful they've burst into flames, with even the godlike Galactus being halted by the penance stare and forced to experience the trillions of deaths that he'd caused over the years. And if you can stop Galactus, hell, you can pretty much stop anything.
In it for MORPH. If you know him from the X-Men cartoon, you won't really know about his real powers, since there he was just a shapeshifter. But the MORPH from the comics is so much more interesting. He doesn't just shapeshift. Instead, he automatically secretes a pheromone that can detect what physical form would put a person most at ease and will automatically transform him into that figure, essentially making him an eye of the beholder human, where everyone sees what they're most comfortable seeing. This makes him the ultimate spy, hands down. He can just walk in somewhere and without breaking a sweat turn into what every single person feels comfortable with. He could just walk into NASA and steal me a computer so that I can play my favorite games at 2000 FPS. But he could also just walk into the White House and hit that big red button, which makes him incredibly dangerous and a force to be reckoned with. While his Earth 616 counterpart bit the dust as the first X-Men to die in action, his name was Changeling, this Earth 1081 version is something to fear. And I fear it.
Getting close to the end in at number 3, JEMM, son of Saturn. After both his mother and teacher were killed by the White Martians, JEMM stole a ship and escaped to Earth, in search of his lover Syra, who had fled there earlier. He arrives in Harlem, New York and is befriended by an orphan named Luther Mankin. After a series of adventures with and without Luther, JEMM eventually found Syra. They all then traveled to New Bok, a red Saturnian colony, but because he refused to take sides in a civil war on New Bok, JEMM was disavowed and cast out by both factions. Dispirited, JEMM and Luther return to Earth, and given that JEMM is a form of Martian in a sense, his Saturnian physiology gives him flight, metamorphosis, physiokinesis, telekinesis, telepathy, energy projection, superhuman durability, superhuman stamina, and superhuman strength that allows him to match Martian Manhunter blow for blow. So I think this is a pretty worthy number 3.
In it 2, Domino. The power of being lucky is something not many of us can understand. Having everything good happen to you all the time is something a few of us can only even imagine. But Domino experiences this on the daily. Lucky. Because her power is just luck. In Deadpool 2, this is how it appears, everything good all the time. But in the comics, her powers are far more than that. She can actually manipulate the force of luck. She had demonstrated this multiple times in the past, like jamming guns at the perfect moment, pulling off dude-perfect level trick shots without looking, and even at one point manipulating the probability that a lightning bolt would strike exactly where she needed it at the exact right time. She's basically the god of luck just as much as Thor is the god of lightning and that Loki is the god of mischief. Hell, with this ability she could just destroy anything and anyone she ever wanted to. This can even go so far as being lucky that a person who wanted to shoot her in the head just wanted to jump off the bridge immediately. Or being so lucky that every time her body is failing her, she makes a miraculous recovery. The extent of how this power can be used is insane and certainly one that we all wish we had. She can even make sure that she experiences poor things like losing her wallet, but luckily enough she didn't have anything of importance in the wallet. It's nuts. Finally, in at number 1, Matter Eater Lad. Matter Eater Lad. Oh my god, this freaking guy. Matter Eater Lad is a native to the planet Abysmal in the DC universe and evolved his ability to eat all forms of matter when microfibers had made all of Abysmal's food inedible. And while you may consider this to be an evolution rather than a mutation, once I introduce you to Mr. Eats All, I think you'll agree with me putting it on this list. Plus, if cilantro tastes like soap to you, it's considered a mutation. And if you have a 6th finger, it's also considered a mutation, even though having 6 fingers is the dominant gene. So in essence, having 5 fingers should be the mutation, but whatever. Rant over. Let me introduce you to Michel L'Hôpital, a man born June 15, 1950, who's known by many as Mr. Eats All. Hailing from France, Michel began eating unusual materials at around the age of 16 accidentally when he ate his first glass. Yeah, like a glass cup. Accidentally. Ever since then, he has broken records. This guy ate a 1.5 ton plane over 10 years. He also will shop for groceries in the DIY area and even bring screws, bolts, and light bulbs to restaurants with him in order to get more variety in his meal. Some places actually comply with him when he asks for them to add this to his meal as replacements, but those are places that know him. This man also took only an hour to eat an entire bike wheel. Everything but the tire itself. This is due to an extra thick stomach and intestine lining that somehow manages to save him. And I'm guessing extra thick teeth. He died at the age of 57 from natural causes, therefore not internal bleeding as many assumed he would. If that's not worthy of a number 1 spot, I don't know what is. Matter Eater Lad is real, guys. What? That's nuts. How? Who? What? When? Where? Why? Alex!
Coming in at number 10, we have Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl. While sharing the same Kryptonian heritage as her more famous cousin Kal-El, for some reason Kara isn't often placed on the same pedestal of awe and power that fans will often place Superman upon. This would be a massive mistake, however, as Supergirl has been shown to be just as strong, fast, and capable as her cousin. And in storylines taking place early in the Man of Steel's career, the more experienced and older Kara has even been said by Batman to be capable of surpassing Superman's strength. While an arm wrestling match these days might end in a draw, it just goes to show that the power of Krypton is still going strong throughout the DC universe. Coming in at number 9, we have Barry Allen, aka The Flash. Barry Allen may be known far and wide for being the fastest man alive, but his mastery of the Speed Force allows him far more interesting and more powerful abilities than merely running really fast. While running near the speed of light, a single punch from the Flash carries the strength of a white dwarf star, and the Flash's body is one of the most durable on a planet filled with metahumans, as he needs that durability to be able to survive the tremendous speeds that he travels at. So much more goes into being the Flash than just blinding speed, a mistake that the Rogues Gallery has made way too many times. Coming in at number 8, we have the Swamp Thing. While at first glance the Swamp Thing may appear to just be an unreasonably strong monster covered in wet moss, in reality Alec Holland is so much more. As an avatar of the green, a primordial force that flows throughout all plant life, Swamp Thing is capable of controlling any form of plant life in the entire universe, whether local to the planet Earth or not. This also includes his own plant matter composed body, which he can alter into any plant he thinks of and can create any form of toxin that he wishes to surprise attack enemies with. Perhaps the most interesting power of the Swamp Thing, however, is his immortality, because as long as there exists some plant life on planet Earth, Alec Holland will have somewhere to house his consciousness and grow into another humanoid Swamp Thing.
And at 7, Moonstar. Prior to being depowered in M-Day, Moonstar had one incredible ability, to be able to manifest physical embodiments and visions of people's worst fears and greatest desires. While in combat, she would translate that into her archery, and if you think about the ways she can use these powers, it's incomprehensible to a human mind. She could be a horror film practical effects artist, charge people to experience their greatest desires, or even just use these manifestations to screw with people until they stay home permanently in fear of leaving their house, because while losing a normal spider is terrifying, losing a giant spider on the outside of your building is enough to keep me home for the rest of my life. Would be in the intelligence department, obviously not where I reside. However, the best use for her powers along with the X-Men would be the intelligence department. If they need information from someone, even a criminal, she could let them experience their greatest desires in exchange for information. Or she could torment them for as long as it takes with their greatest fear and then get the information that way. She could also use it to run the world if she ever really wanted to. Hey, if someone was able to let me experience a date with Emma Watson, I would sure as hell vote for them.
Coming in at number 6, we have Patrick O'Brien, aka Plastic Man. Typically seen as one of the comic relief members of the Justice League, Plastic Man is a hero whose powers just seem wacky on the surface, but when you really think about them, technically make him one of the most powerful members on the Justice League team. Capable of completely manipulating his body down to the molecular level, Plastic Man is essentially indestructible given how flexible he's able to become. Completely impervious to physical damage, Plastic Man has also shown a complete immunity to mind control or telepathic suggestions, as his brain isn't made of enough solid matter for anyone else to control. All of these facts combine to make Plastic Man much more dangerous than a simple joke of a hero.
Halfway through into number 5, Swamp Thing. In a secret facility located in the Louisiana swamplands, scientist Alec Holland and his wife Linda invented a bio-restorative formula that would solve any nation's food shortage problems. Ferret and Bruno, thugs working for Nathan Ellery, barged into Alec's lab, knocked him out, and planted a bomb in the facility. Alec woke up just as the bomb exploded, and in the flames he ran into the swamp. His body had been drenched in the bio-restorative formula, and this affected the plant life of the swamp, imbuing it with Alex's consciousness and memories. The newly conscious plant life then formed a semblance of a human form and rose up from the bog as the Swamp Thing, the latest in a long line of Earth elementals created when the Green was in need of protection. His body is composed of sentient vegetable matter. He has the ability to nourish himself, superhuman strength, elemental control, chlorokinesis, astral projection, biofission, immortality, regeneration, size alteration, resurrection, you name it, and Swampy can do it. Swampy, away!
Coming in at number 4, we have Bobby Drake, aka Iceman. As one of the earliest members of the X-Men, Bobby has had a lot of time over the years to explore his powers, and contrary to appearances, he can do far more than just convert his body into ice. Classified as an Omega level mutant, the most powerful designation there is, Iceman is capable of not only controlling the temperature of all of his own molecules, but is able to manipulate water molecules entirely as well as part of his own mass. This means the possibilities for Bobby's powers are as intense and malleable as water itself, allowing him to freeze the blood within enemies' veins, travel instantly through a stream of water, or even cause another ice age if Bobby didn't hold back his full strength.
And at 3, ice cream. Who here likes ice cream? Basically everyone. Well, what about a mutant whose power is to just turn himself into any flavor of ice cream imaginable? Yeah, well, it may not seem like an incredible superpower to have since you can't really taste yourself, or if anyone did taste you, I guess they'd be eating you. I still think this would be incredibly useful. Ice cream once infiltrated the danger room at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, before being turned into a block of frozen ice cream when Professor X turned down the temperature of that room, but he still managed to do it. Plus, have you seen the movie Sky High? If not, I highly recommend it. Daniel Panabaker from The Flash is in it, and it's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's about teenagers who have superpowers who attend superhero high school, and one of them doesn't have powers when he goes. It's really awkward. Well, one of the main characters in it is named Ethan, and he essentially has this ability. He can literally turn into a puddle that he can still move around while in that puddle. He gets classified as a sidekick at first, but after he helps defeat the bad guys at the end, he ends up being promoted to hero. This power is pretty dope, and here's the real kicker that makes it way too overpowered. He can even taste like banana split. What? How? Do you become the bananas too?
Coming in at number 2, we have Susan Storm, aka the Invisible Woman. On a team with someone made of fire, someone made of rocks, and the smartest man in the universe, you wouldn't immediately think that the Invisible Woman is the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, but looks can certainly be deceiving. Granted with the power of invisibility and the power to generate invisible force fields following her exposure to cosmic radiation, Sue Storm's force fields are the key to her tremendous strength, capable of turning others invisible, giving herself support to fly through the air, and capable of blocking even psychic attacks against her or the rest of the team. The Invisible Woman can manipulate her force fields into any shape that's needed, including being capable of creating expanding fields inside of any enemy she chooses. Let's just hope that that usage of her ability stays just with her villainous alter egos, shall we? And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the one and only Spectacular Spider-Man. Spider-Man would never be called a weakling by anyone, except maybe some supervillains, but his actual physical strength is actually far beyond what anyone in even the Marvel universe would expect. Under situations of intense stress, Peter Parker has been shown as capable of lifting literal tons, far beyond the usual strength he generally seems to show. And when Peter Parker's body was briefly taken over by Otto Octavius's brain, the villain was stunned to discover that Spider-Man had been holding back every punch he'd ever thrown, after accidentally knocking the Scorpion's jaw clean off. Definitely a messy situation, and definitely goes to show that fighting Spider-Man, it's not the brightest idea.
And it's at Midnighter. Midnighter, alongside his future husband Apollo, was part of the top secret Stormwatch team created by the first weatherman, Henry Bendix. Nobody but Bendix himself knew of the team's existence. Bendix built them as superhumans, and when they donned their costumes and spoke their code names, their previous identities ceased to exist. Midnighter has the power to predict how a situation will happen before it starts. This allows him to run through a given situation millions of times in his mind, instantly covering every possible result before his first move is even made. He uses this information to predict the actions and or reactions of others, counteracting their moves almost before they even think to make them, effectively making Midnighter the greatest tactician in the history of mankind. Basically the good guy version of the Thinker. That's That's pretty cool. He could be Batman just because he knew every single way it would happen. And at 9, the Atomic Knight. The Atomic Knights appeared in every third issue of Strange Adventures in the early 1960s, beginning with number 117 and running through number 160. In all, there were 15 early 1960s Atomic Knight stories created by writer John Broome and artist Murphy Anderson. They were a band of heroes living in and protecting the post-apocalyptic future of 1992. Yep, at that point it was the future. Following the catastrophic Hydrogen War of 1986, a petty tyrant named the Black Baron ruled a small section of the Midwestern United States with an iron fist. He was opposed by Sergeant Gardner Grail of the Atomic Knights, who wore medieval suits of armor that were impervious to the Baron's energy weapons, the armor having been irradiated in the war. Gardner Grail also has precognition and wears a suit of armor that grants him enhanced speed, strength, endurance, and lets him blast energy, as well as being adaptable to other technology. And at 8, Acrita. Andrea's father was Bernardo Rojas, once a renowned leader in Central America who researched pre-Hispanic cultures at a university in Mexico. She lived alone with her cat named Zapata, named after one of the revolutionary leaders in Mexico. Acrita specialized in striking against organized crime. Every time she caught a perpetrator or helped avert a tragedy, she cited a literary quotation, or if she had the time, painted graffiti insulting or challenging the local authorities, which might hint at her being a bit of an anarchist, which honestly I'm kinda into. This character seemed to be kind of a Mexican Batman, and despite her anarchist tendencies, she often worked with another 2 Mexican superheroes, ICEMAN and El Muerto. Together with these 2 allies and Superman, she once saved Mexico and the world from the total destruction from a bad guy group trying to channel the powers inherent to the ley lines of Earth to accomplish their goals. So good on ya, Andrea. Good on you.
Coming in at number 7, we have Doctor Strange. Now, obviously Doctor Strange is already known to be pretty powerful. After all, he's Earth's primary defender against mystical threats in the Marvel Universe, and always seems to have some sort of spell to solve whatever problem is currently facing Earth's mightiest heroes. As a master of the mystic arts, Strange has also entirely stopped aging, and is effectively immortal, being unable to die from any medical disease or symptoms of old age. And when Strange recently did die in the Marvel comic called, fittingly enough, The Death of Doctor Strange, he had already concocted a way for a younger version of himself from the timeline to take his place and defend Earth against any extra-dimensional forces that might seek to take advantage of his own death. There's planning ahead, and then there's Dr. Stephen Strange, taking it to a whole nother level.
And at 6, Apollo. Essentially the Wildstorm universe's answer to Superman, Apollo is now technically a part of the DC superhero universe, like Wildstorm ever since the 2 universes converged following the events of Flashpoint. Apollo possesses many of the same powers as Superman, but with a few notable differences. Like Kal-El, Apollo possesses superhuman strength, flight, and near invulnerability. If you want some clarification as to just how impervious to damage he is, he's able to walk on the surface of the sun. Apollo also has the ability to shoot lasers from his eyes, derived from solar energy. But unlike Superman, he can also release this energy from other parts of his body, including his hands and mouth. This dude can fire lasers from his mouth. He uses hyper beam in real life. His only real weakness is that he relies on the sun for his powers, so if he doesn't get enough exposure, his powers will diminish, but hey, at least Apollo isn't vulnerable to kryptonite.
And at 5, Eyeboy. Ever feel like everyone is watching you? Like you have dozens of eyes on you whenever you make a tiny mistake on the subway or when you sneeze at work? Well, Eyeboy is the physical embodiment of that feeling. Eyeboy is covered with dozens of eyeballs randomly placed around his body. While this makes things incredibly awkward, especially dates, it is actually incredibly useful and could make him one of the best secret intelligence agents ever, if you get past the eyeballs. Each eye gives him a different form of sight, so instead of viewing 360 degrees, he can use one to see things like a microscope, or see magical wavelengths in the air, see the non-visible light spectrum, and he even has an X-ray eye. That's really weird on dates. But most interestingly, he also has what can only be referred to as the Sherlock Holmes ability. This allows him to see minute body signals and instinctively interpret them with great accuracy, making him a living lie detector test, and somehow allowing him to perceive your hopes, fears, and ideology from a single glance, making him one hell of an interrogator and special ops agent. Combine this with Moonstar's original ability and you have one hell of a dynamic duo for interrogations. Sorry, I know that that's a DC thing and these are Marvel, but still.
And in 4, Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle was scot-free, the god of escape in the New Gods mythology. A Genesian raised on Apocalypse, he defected with his lover Big Barda to Earth, where he used the skills he learned in escapology, both as a performance artist and in the Justice League of America. Originally, the boy scot-free was the son of High Father Isaiah, the ruler of New Genesis. However, as a part of a diplomatic move to stop a destructive war against the planet Apocalypse, High Father agreed to an exchange of children with his enemy Darkseid. In doing so, he surrendered scot-free to the care of his enemy while he received his enemy's son Orion. This guy has new god physiology, okay, making him immortal, super strength, super durable, and giving him super agility. Plus, when utilizing his full godly potential, Mr. Miracle wields a cosmic energy field called Alpha Effect, which allows him to transverse through time and space, heal living beings, fully restore creatures back from death, and control energy to an almost boundless degree. Yep, you're on the list.
Coming in at number 3, we have Mark Spector, aka the infamous Moon Knight. A street-level Marvel hero with powers that go far beyond the usual street, Mark Spector is a vessel for the Egyptian god known as Khonshu. Able to embrace the 4 different aspects of Khonshu as 4 distinct personalities within his head, Moon Knight is strongest under the light of a full moon, giving him physical strength far beyond that of a normal man, and a pain tolerance that is nearly limitless. On top of his supernatural abilities, Mark is also an expert in both weaponry and hand-to-hand combat, combining them with his moon-based powers into a deadly combination that even left him capable of taking on the entire Avengers team.
Penultimately, in at number 2, Karate Kid. Karate Kid is actually Val Armour, a superhero from the future and also a member of the Legion of Superheroes. He is a master of every form of martial arts to have ever been developed by the 30th century. The extent of his skill was so great that he could severely damage various types of hard material with a single blow, and was briefly able to hold his own against Superboy through the use of what he called super karate. So he already seems pretty legit. Val Armour was the son of Japanese greatest crime lord Kiaru Nozumi, also known as the Black Dragon. When he was born, his mother, an American secret agent known as Valentina Armour, tried to hide him from his father, but she failed to do so and was killed for her affront. Japan's biggest hero, Sensei Toshiaki, and the White Crane, eventually killed the Black Dragon for his crimes and then adopted the infant Val. He raised Val as if he were his own son and trained him in all manner of martial arts. Val became the youngest warrior ever to earn the title of samurai, and he went on to work for his local shogun. However, after trying his best and failing to please his supervisor, he quit and searched the galaxy for new forms of battle to master. That just goes to show you, people, appreciate your employees, otherwise they're gonna quit and go search the galaxy for new forms of martial arts, okay? And finally, in at number 1, Blue Beetle. Jamie Reyes was a relatively normal high school student from El Paso, Texas. His father ran a garage and his mother was a paramedic, and he had a little sister who was a total brat. Jamie hung out with his 2 best friends, Brenda and Paco, and he acted as like the mediator between the hardworking Brenda and the laid-back Paco. By both Brenda and Paco's accounts, he was a good friend, the kind of person who could just let them be themselves and would always make things better. Jamie aimed to help his father out in the garage, but Alberto turned him down, not wanting to see his son grow up too fast. Ted Cord, the second Blue Beetle, had come into possession of the Blue Beetle Scarab, the artifact which had given Dan Garrett, the first Blue Beetle, his powers. The Scarab had been presumed destroyed early in Ted's superhero career, but it was discovered intact in a pyramid in the Middle East. This is where Jamie gets his powers as well. What are those powers, you ask? The Scarab can and will use its powers of its own accord. Jamie, however, can override the Scarab if need be, and should Jeremy fall prey to mind-altering power, the Scarab will take control of the armor. So it will act on its own, and basically he's not mind control anymore because it's just the Scarab doing it, not actually him. So yeah, number 1 hands down.